Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Live, Laugh, What. I'm Liv, and in today's episode, we are doing part 2 of the Summer I Turned Pretty final typing of these characters that we've been with for the last 3 years. I am so excited about this because we are talking about the Fisher boys, and this is going to be the rounding out of everything that you've been hoping for. We are diving into these two boys and their connection to Belly in this episode, and I have so much to say about these characters. The last episode was a long one. If you have not listened to the 2022 episode, where I really just dive into those first 7 episodes that we had and talk about the characters initially and what I thought their types were, check it out because I went and watched that episode again before I filmed this, and it was so funny to see what I typed these characters back then and then what I typed them as now, seeing them throughout 3 seasons and different phases of life, from teens to adults and the ups and downs. So be sure and check that out because it really was fun. And I also was able to hit on some different points that are really specific to season 1. Whereas in this episode, I'm really going to be honing in more on season 3 with a little bit sprinkled in from season 2. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you've listened to the podcast at all this summer, you know that I was a staunch Team Jeremiah for the longest time. That is the big hint here. So the interesting thing with Jeremiah, I feel like initially in the whole series, like I don't know what happened in season 3, it was like a different human being. But what I saw in seasons 1 and 2, he seems to be the more responsible one. He seems to be the one that doesn't have his head in the clouds, that is really just trying to do what he needs to do. He seems grounded and responsible and seems like he is other people focused. And it seemed like Conrad was the one who just couldn't care about anybody else, did his own thing, didn't care how it was going to affect other people. And then season 3 happened, and all of a sudden they completely flip flopped. I don't know what happened, but I will say I was hardcore about loving Jeremiah from seasons 1 and 2. Season 3, I liked him for a little bit, and then it's like we start to see kind of the curtain get pulled back of like, oh, so that's really how you feel, and that's really how you act. It was very odd, but I will say I am massive Team Jeremiah seasons 1 and 2. Season 3 is a different story. Anyways, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So Jeremiah, and I'm mostly talking season 3 because I've just had my whole spiel on what I think about seasons 1 and 2. So Jeremiah season 3, I typed him as a 2-wing 3, and I said that I think his tri-type is a 2-7-9. Originally, in that first episode that I did in 2022, I said that I thought he was a type 7, and I thought he had a lot of heavy 2-3 going on, but I explained it in that episode. I felt like he was really giving more 7 in that first season, and ish in season 2, I felt like he kind of got away from some of that. I feel like Jeremiah is a 7 on vacation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, his vacation mode is type 7, but I don't think his daily is type 7. That's not his daily driver. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so again, it's so funny because I kind of had the exact same numbers just in a different order originally. The original tri-type I gave him was a 7-9. Right now, having seen all 3 seasons and mostly focusing on season 3 for right now, I said that I think he is a 2-7-9. So my original thought was right. It's just now seeing him throughout different walks of life, I feel like he really is a type 2. Then the 3-wing, I'll explain as well. But yeah, and this is what I think I couldn't figure out in that first episode. I'm like, why is he doing what he's doing? And what is he searching for? And I felt like in that first season, it was like, he wants to have the most fun. He wants to like squeeze the most out of life. Like he wants the most happiness and like exciting things he can have. Whereas I actually think a lot of what it is number 1, extrovertedness. Number 2, I think that he's somebody that really values community. I think is the most easy way to sum that up. And he loves like relationships with other people. And I think he really gets like energy from being around other people. And so I think that also can give off kind of that 7 vibe initially. And so with only 7 episodes to work with, and they're on vacation, and it's people that he's known his whole life, like it's just, you're kind of at a disadvantage. Okay, so the things that I said that stood out to me the most in season 3, he wants his father's approval, which I think does point back to that first episode I did. I talked a lot about how like his relationship with Adam is versus Conrad's relationship with Adam and all that. He lives in his ideals and sometimes a fantasy world. He has the perfect vision of how something will go without the full ability to plan or put it into action. This is really important. Also, I'm sorry, I have so many notes for this that I'm looking down at my phone a whole lot because I don't want to miss anything. And I feel like these are the characters you want the most dirt on. So we have to dig into the details. With Jeremiah, I feel like what we see a lot, especially with like the apartment hunting with him and Belly, and oh my gosh, the freaking chocolate cake incident of 2025. Oh my stars. Okay. What we see with him is he's kind of living in this just like fantasy world where he hasn't really had to work for much of anything. He is somebody that doesn't necessarily think things through from plan to like, okay, what do I need to do to get to the final part where I can actually do this thing or have this thing or whatever. He's a little bit more right now focused, and I think that can be really hard for Belly, who is a 6, to be right now focused when it's like, but how is this going to domino effect? I think that's also very upsetting for a 6. Whereas the 2, sometimes they come across very 7-ish because they are quick action people. And 2s are the most energetic type on the Enneagram. And you probably thought it was a type 7. Common misconception. It is a type 2. They, like I said, I think a lot of times you see 2s that are emotionally charged from other people. Like they love to be around others and that fills their tank. And so I think a lot of times it's like they're doing something and then they're like hanging out with somebody and then they're like and they power up, and so they just keep going and going and going, and they're like a hamster on a wheel. Like God bless them. I couldn't. But I think Jeremiah very much has that energy, and with being in the heart triad, and this is the difference of why I think he would not be a 7. 7s are big idea people, but because they're in the head triad, they are able to figure out how to get from point A to point B. Whereas I feel like more with a type 2, they're really enthralled with the idea, and then they need other people to help them carry it out because the idea might be fantastic, but the 50-50 to that is like, you can have a great idea, but how are we going to get there? How are we going to get there well? And so I think not that 2s can't do that. I think, you see a lot of 2s as executive assistants because they are so good at details, but it takes, I would say, more of wanting to have an action plan and experience in that. You can't be an executive assistant with no experience. You can't just like one day be like, I'm going to be an EA and do it. I know it too that is like the literal master of spreadsheets. It's crazy. But that's because that's something they applied themselves to. I don't think a lot of 2s would say their dream job is sitting in front of a spreadsheet and like doing schedules. So, it's something where I think it's a little bit more learned experience paired with their desire to help and make other people's lives easier. And that's where they get the joy from it. So the other thing about Jeremiah is that he really wants to do the right thing, but he often doesn't fully think things through from an other people mindset when he does make a decision. And I have here, for example, taking the job in Boston without telling Belly. And then she finds out about it from Adam. That's something too that I feel like we've talked about this before, but sometimes 2s, and you see this in this episode, it's like, it's kind of heartbreaking because I think he was like, yeah, like I thought you'd be super excited about it. And it's like, no. And again, this is where that 6-2 relationship can sometimes be a little bit difficult because the 2 is like excited about this thing, and I think he does have a lot of 7 in him. I think this is something that you would see maybe a little more so from the 7, but sometimes the 2 is so focused on what they want and they are kind of deriving joy from this thing that they think you're going to have the same joy about it. Like you're going to be just as excited as I am. And then you don't end up being as excited because it didn't fit with your plan, or it's just not something you're super into, or you kind of were like, well, we had plans for this. And so sometimes because they're able to shift so easily, which is such a strength, sometimes they assume other people are going to do the same. And they have like, and we talked about this in the Cruel Summer episode. Sometimes there's these unspoken expectations and they expect that you will respond in this way, or that you'll do X, Y, and Z, or that you'll reciprocate. And then when you don't, it crushes them. And that's what we really see from Jeremiah. We see throughout the series that when he kind of gives to other people, when he goes out on a limb for them, when he extends himself and the other person doesn't value it, doesn't do the same thing back, or doesn't respond in the way he wants, he feels this massive amount of just like rejection and he's completely deflated. And that's something that is what you'll see more from someone in the heart triad versus someone in the head triad, like a type 7. So that's really where I wanted to clear that up. Again, he is kind of ruled by his feelings and whims. I think he is somebody that is so excited about like the feeling he derives from something versus Belly is thinking things through and kind of being more logical. And it's interesting because what we see with Jeremiah, and this is so important when typing pop culture characters, I'm going to read exactly what I wrote because I think this summed it up so well, because this is exactly like right after I watched the episode, this is what I thought. He wants so badly to be loved and to measure up. He was always compared to Conrad and wanted his own place in the world and to feel like he was special enough to warrant that from someone, which is why he made Belly his world, which we hear him say several times throughout the season. His mom was like, again, it's always like, oh, Conrad, my special boy. And I think Jeremiah kind of felt a little bit like second fiddle. Even though she had her own relationship with Jeremiah that was special, I think a lot of times the dad as well was sort of comparing the two and pitting them against each other, which is so wrong and wretched, but it happened. So he kind of feels like, oh, I'm constantly being compared to Conrad. Like, when am I going to get to be my own special person? And that's where I think you see him trying to compensate a little bit with forging these deep bonds with people. And again, that comes out of a brokenness. I'm not saying this about all twos. I'm saying this is someone that has kind of dealt with this residual like struggle because of this consistent nagging and nagging and nagging of the same thing over and over. And you eventually get raw. And that's where I think he has an emotional raw spot. And so he's kind of trying to fill that with like different relationships. And we see, there's comments made even in the first season where it's like he just sort of fills his time with romantic encounters and will kind of flip back and forth. And I think it's because he's searching for sort of this thing to fill this void in his heart. And it's sad to see and it's sad to hear about. But I think when his mom goes, and he had wanted his mom to value him the same way that I think he thought she valued Conrad, even though I think she loved them equally. I think Jeremiah was like, oh, well, Belly cares about me. I'm going to start to make her the center of my universe, which he says countless times, in hopes that she will make me the center of hers and I will finally feel like I am indispensable, like I am the most valued, like I am the most cared about. And that's where you see a type 7. I don't think like they are a head type first and foremost. I don't think you would see a type 7 have kind of this falling out with their significant other and say, let's just get married. That's really not what you're going to see from a head type. The 2, on the other hand, values the relationship and they are so relationship focused and they so don't want to lose this special person that, again, I talk about this in the Cruel Summer episode and all the time when it comes to type 2s. I think a really missed fact is that 2s tend to merge. And that's something that is very talked about in terms of type 9s. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. I truly feel like type 2s do merge as well because they are so relationship focused and like that's what they want. I think what we see a lot of times is the 2 merging with the person that they view as their person that they want to be linked with in this sort of solar system aspect of like, I want to revolve around you and then you revolve around me. And so that's what I think we see with Belly and Jeremiah. They've kind of started to circulate around each other, but then it's like one kind of gets a little off kilter and then this one's like, oh gosh, what do I do? We see him like grappling with this and he's constantly feeling this stuff under the surface. And I think what you see from 2s, which again, this is kind of why 2s and 9s can get mistyped. There's a little bit, I would say, of this kind of shoving down of what he knows is right, because we end up hearing him say he knows that Belly really still cared about Conrad, but he was trying to shove it down. So I think that's important to talk about too. But again, Jeremiah 2 and 3, pretty classic. He does really value relationships and he also does want to appear more put together. He wants to, in a time of really needing to heal, I think he wants to put on this front and this persona. Again, we talk about type 3s wearing a mask. I think that's what we see him doing and kind of pulling on that 3-wing versus a 2-wing one. Let's talk about Connie Baby, because I know you've been dying for this one. So Conrad, which is so funny. I'm so glad. These 2, I guess I just had from the beginning because I ended up typing in the same thing that I typed in season 1, but I have a lot more reasoning for it now than I did in season 1 because remember I was all like, is Conrad a 4? Is he a 9? Like, what's going on? And I did end up choosing 9 because of a couple of things, but I feel like I have way more of a reasoning now for why he is a type 9 and especially a 1-wing. So in the original episode, I said that he was a 9 and that his tri-type was a 9-4-5. And Funny enough, I ended up typing him with a tri-type of 946 this time around. One of the things that stuck out to me the most, in episode 5, this is where it was Conrad's point of view episode. So he says that he struggles with looking weak in front of Belly. And that is something that, I think there's almost, because remember, type 9, they kind of have like all the types in them, and that's why they struggle so much to find their type. And we can struggle when it comes to pop culture of actually understanding, like, are they this, are they that? And a lot of times you'll go back and forth, which is what I was doing with Conrad initially. And maybe you did too if you were trying to type them. So I think that's really interesting because it's almost like remember, 9's in the gut triad, but if you're in the middle of a triad, you're actually kind of repressed in that thing. So I actually gave this example in the last episode if you listened, but I'll give it again. So you have the gut triad. I'm going to do it this way because this is how it is on the top of the Enneagram. So here's the 9 in the middle. Then you have, I don't know which side this is on, but hopefully it's the right side, the 8 and the 1. So whatever is in the middle, they are repressed in the center that they're actually in. So we have the 8 and the 1 that are, if they feel something, you will know. The 8 will not hold back, the 1 will not hold back. If they feel something, boom, they react. The 9, on the other hand, tends to repress that and doesn't react. And what we see with the 9, which I talk about this so much in the Endless Love episode, they actually will bottle up their feelings. They will shove down their opinions, their wants, their needs. And then what ends up happening is they will end up exploding. And this is what we actually see in this season. So, and we actually see it in season 2 as well. So in season 2, when they take Conrad back and he finishes up his test and then he comes out and Belly and Jeremiah are all upon each other, Conrad is beyond pissed. And we see that whole scene of them in the car and it's like painful to watch and he's being so passive aggressive and it's just like, oh my gosh, get out of this car. This is what you'll see from the type 9 when they have had it. 9s, because they deny that gut feeling, when something happens, they're starting to reach the end of their ability to keep bottling things up. They become passive aggressive. And this is something, again, this is lower health levels. So you'll see it'll be kind of like he was in the car where he's like, oh, really? Like, oh, look at that, you two, and you're like, this is painful. So that's what you'll see more from a type 9, whereas pretty much any other type is going to tell you exactly how they feel by that point. They're not going to shy away from it, but he's working his way up to that. He's just like, I'm going to be passive aggressive first. So that's what you'll see. And then in this season, we see he's denied himself long enough. He's like, I have got to tell her. He's going to crack if he doesn't tell her how he feels. And then once he finds out that Jeremiah cheated, he's like, done. And that's when we see that scene with the lifeguard tower. If he's like, I love you. The other thing with Conrad, he tries to compartmentalize his feelings, but he looks at things deeply, which is what I love about him. And again, I think that's really important for the 9. We have to give him credit where credit's due. I think that they are people that really do deeply think about things and they are introspective. And I feel like that's where 9s can get mistyped for 4s and 5s. He wants to be morally good. This is the other funny thing. We kind of hear these like different things sprinkled in throughout this season where it's like his conversations with his therapist, and his therapist told him, you need to get better at uncertainty. And his response to the therapist is, uncertainty sucks. And the therapist also said he needs to get better at stopping trying to control things. And, again, that's like 9 wing 1 for you. That's why I picked the 1 wing for him instead of an 8 wing. The 1 wing wants to have a set of circumstances that is under control. They don't like things being left up to chance. They want to make sure they have their schedule. What is the game plan? What are we doing? They want to have that because that makes them feel secure. And kind of same for the type 6 as well. And that's again why I put the 6 in his tri-type this time instead of the 5, because I feel like we really do see more of the 6-ish with him versus the 5-ish. I just don't really feel like we see it as much. The season 2 and season 3. The other funny thing that I just thought was like endearing was in this last episode, we see that he had a bullet point list in his phone when he was going to be meeting with Jeremiah again for the first time in a long time. And it was basically to kind of like quench this potential for there being anything awkward, but also like he wanted Jeremiah to feel comfortable. He wanted to feel comfortable, and he was like secretly really excited to see him, but he was also like, I don't know how I'm going to be received. But he was like, what can I do to kind of make sure I've done all I can do to make sure this goes well? And again, that's what you're going to see more from that like 6, 9, because remember 9 and 6 have a connection to each other. 9, 6, and 3 all connect. And so again, I think you see a lot of that sixishness with him, and you do see a lot of that like nine wanting to keep the peace. The other thing that I love about Conrad and why I haven't jumped on the bandwagon, although he has pissed me off many times, but that's another story. He is very long suffering. He is somebody that like truly has locked in, and he was going to ride this train. He's like, she has picked him. I have to honor that. And it really like tore him up inside, but he was too loyal to his brother and too loyal to her to be like, I can't do this to them. And he was going to stick it out, and he was okay that if he had to be in pain, he was going to be in pain because he was going to do the right thing. Again, what you'll see more from that type 1, which is why I chose the 1 wing for him, but what you're going to see from a 9 who wants to keep the peace, wants to do the right thing, and values the people in his life. But again, to wrap up everything about him, he is really good at seeing things from other people's perspective. And again, that's what you're going to get from that type 9. Type 9s are so good at seeing all sides of a situation. They make a great therapist. And I think they also make a really great doctor because they are looking at things from all angles, and they're really good at, being compassionate and understanding where somebody else is coming from. And again, because they are part of the gut triad, like they just know that they know. And whether or not they act on it quickly is another story, but they have that gut instinct. I think it's like, it's kind of sweet, but it's kind of pitiful that he's been writing her for like a year while she's been in Paris, belly for a year. Sorry, I should say that. But he has gotten to a maturity point, and I think it's so amazing to see a 9 that's like in therapy and growing and doing so well. He is like, I am going to keep pursuing. And that's what we love about a man. A man that pursues is something to cherish. So I think that him and Belly together, I think would also be a really great team. Like, I think that they would balance each other out, but they also would understand the other person so well because of the 9 and 6 connection point. So I think that'd be a great relationship. That's it for this episode. And I hope we were able to really talk about like the 2 relationships and why they both kind of worked and why they didn't. I think all in all, if you look at like, if you were to make a list of the similarities and differences, I think Conrad and Belly win for similarities and probably the least problematic relationship and marriage versus Jeremiah and Belly. Even though I was team jellyfish for so long, I am team, what is it, Bonrad? I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't even paid attention to that because I was so jelly. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Be sure and check back next Tuesday for a brand new episode. And also check back on Instagram at Live Laugh What Podcast, because I always do my behind the scenes cast photo vibey post for you with every new episode of all your favorite TV shows and movies. So go check it out there. And also check out Hey, It's Liv James on Instagram for all the clips from previous and current podcast episodes that you're not going to want to miss. And I'll see you there.